Have you ever picked up a rock in your backyard and wondered if it might be worth something? Probably not. But in 2015, a quiet man in Australia did just that. And what he found changed his life forever. It didn't sparkle like a diamond. It wasn't glowing or radioactive. It was just a rock, or so it seemed. What he didn't know at that moment was that this dull, lumpy piece of earth was hiding a secret, one that would turn him into an instant millionaire and shake the world of geology to its core. This is not one of those internet myths or urban legends. What you're about to hear is a fully documented, astonishingly real event that caught scientists, experts, and even government authorities off guard. A man with no training in geology stumbled upon something so rare, so valuable, that even seasoned treasure hunters couldn't believe it. The craziest part? It almost ended up in the trash. The man's name is David Hole, a name that at the time meant absolutely nothing to the world. A regular guy living in Victoria, Australia, in the gold-rich region known as Maryborough. Known for its long-dead gold rush of the 19th century, Maryborough had long been forgotten as a source of riches. But what David unearthed would put the town back on the map in the most unexpected way. One morning, David was poking around in a local park with his metal detector, hoping to find a few coin or maybe some old nail. What he found instead was a heavy, rust-colored lump buried just beneath the soil. It was oddly dense and unusually smooth on some sides. Something about it just didn't feel right. It was too heavy for its size, but it wasn't shiny. It wasn't golden. It didn't scream treasure. Still, something told David to hold on to it. He took it home and tried everything to crack it open. A hacksaw, an angle grinder, even acid. But the rock didn't budge. It was like trying to break a piece of metal with your bare hands. No chisel or tool could break through. It was almost indestructible. Frustrated, he shoved it into a drawer where it would sit untouched for years. At that point, it was nothing more than a strange curiosity. But David couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this rock. Why was it so heavy? Why wouldn't it break? What was it made of? Years later, on a whim, he brought it to a museum. He thought maybe someone could at least tell him what it was. He had no idea that this single act would rewrite everything he knew about luck, science, and wealth. Because what David found wasn't from this earth, literally. The rock was a meteorite, and not just any meteorite, one of the rarest, most scientifically valuable ever discovered in Australia. Inside it were minerals and metals older than the Earth itself, materials forged in the heart of dead stars, worth millions not just in money, but in scientific value. And this is just the beginning of the story, because what happened next, who came knocking, how the rock was tested, and what it revealed would lead to one of the most fascinating discoveries in recent history. A find that connects space, science, and serendipity in one incredible chain of events. When David Hole carried that rock into the Melbourne Museum, he expected a quick answer, maybe a "sorry, mate," just iron ore, and a polite smile. Instead, the staff's reaction was different. They asked questions, they took photos, they weighed it 17 kilograms, far heavier than a normal rock of its size. Then they asked to keep it for testing. That's when David realized this was no ordinary stone. The museum's geologists began a series of tests that would take weeks. The rock refused to behave like anything from Earth. Under X-ray fluorescence, its composition lit up with metals rarely found together. Nicknamed Maryborough, after the town where it was found, the meteorite stunned researchers. Its outer shell showed signs of ablation, tiny burns and grooves caused by atmospheric entry. This rock had fallen from the sky. More tests followed: mass spectrometry, isotopic analysis, magnetic susceptibility. And the results? Almost unbelievable. The meteorite was composed mainly of iron and nickel, two elements common in meteorites, but rare in Earth's crust. But what made it truly special was its age. Scientists estimated it was over 4.6 billion years old, older than the Earth itself. It had drifted through space for eons before finally crashing into David Hole's backyard. Even more astonishing, the meteorite had a chondritic structure, meaning it contained tiny mineral grains called chondrules, some of the oldest solid materials in the solar system. These chondrules predated our planet, our sun, and possibly our entire solar system. This wasn't just a rock. It was a cosmic time capsule. Suddenly, David's find was no longer just a lucky break. It was an invaluable scientific artifact. Researchers from all over the world began requesting samples. Universities called. NASA expressed interest. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about knowledge, history, and the secrets of the universe. But yes, it was also about the money. Because meteorites, especially rare, intact ones with high scientific interest, can fetch astronomical sums. Some are valued at over $1,000 per gram, depending on their composition and rarity. And David's meteorite, weighing 17 kilograms, was potentially worth millions. Auction houses in Europe began calling. Private collectors lined up with offers. The rock was no longer a curiosity. It was a treasure. What's more ironic, David had almost broken it apart. He had almost thrown it away. In a different universe, this billion-year-old gem might have ended up as a doorstop or tossed into a pile of garden rubble. But now it sat in a glass case behind museum security, studied by experts, revered by scientists, and protected like a national treasure. Yet one question remained. Where exactly had it come from? Not just the park in Maryborough, but the cosmic origin. And the answer, when it came, would open yet another door to one of the most bizarre and awe-inspiring mysteries about our universe. To understand where the Maryborough meteorite came from, scientists had to look beyond Earth, far beyond. Its chemical fingerprint, revealed through isotopic analysis, didn't match any known rocks from Earth, the Moon, or even Mars. Instead, it pointed to something more ancient and more violent. The meteorite originated from an asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, a chaotic graveyard of shattered worlds and frozen time. This belt is home to millions of rocky bodies, leftovers from the early solar system. Scientists believe these fragments were once part of a protoplanet, a young world that never formed, torn apart by gravitational chaos. The Maryborough meteorite, it turns out, may have been forged in the core of that ancient body, under immense heat and pressure, before being ejected into space by a colossal impact. And then it drifted. For billions of years, the rock wandered silently through the void. No engines, no course, just floating, like a cosmic message in a bottle. Occasionally, it may have passed near planets, pulled slightly by their gravity, but nothing captured it, until Earth did. Sometime in the past 100 years, no one knows exactly when, it came hurtling through our atmosphere, blazing hot, moving at speeds over 45,000 kilometers per hour. The outer layer scorched and fused from the heat of entry, forming a natural shell. Then it crashed into the soil of Maryborough, embedding itself just beneath the surface, waiting to be found. What's incredible is how many variables had to align for this moment to happen. If it had entered at a steeper angle, it would have burned up. If it had landed in the ocean, it would be lost forever. If David Hole had walked a few meters in another direction, he never would have found it. A billion-year journey ended by pure chance, in the backyard of a man with a metal detector. And this wasn't just any fragment of space debris. Its structure suggested it had remained unchanged since the birth of our solar system. That made it a goldmine of information for planetary scientists. Inside its core, researchers found traces of rare minerals like troilite and taenite, materials only formed in the vacuum of space. The meteorite even contained pre-solar grains, microscopic crystals older than our sun. These grains came from stars that exploded as supernovae long before Earth even existed. Think about that for a second. David Hole wasn't just holding a rock, he was holding pieces of dead stars in his hands. With each new test, the meteorite became more than just a financial windfall. It became a bridge between past and present, Earth and sky, man and universe. A single rock that told the story of time, death, rebirth, and the unimaginable odds that brought it to a small town in Australia. But with fame and fortune comes attention. And as news of the find spread, a new wave of interest emerged, not from scientists, but from treasure hunters, speculators, and even black market collectors. And that's when the story took a turn no one expected. As news of the Maryborough meteorite spread across Australia and beyond, the tone of the story began to shift. What had started as a quiet scientific discovery soon turned into something far more chaotic. TV crews began showing up. Journalists called at all hours, and then came the strangers, some with genuine curiosity, others with hidden agendas. David Hole, once a humble man with a metal detector and a dream, suddenly found himself at the center of a bizarre storm. He began receiving unsolicited offers, some legitimate, some suspicious. A man from Europe offered $1.2 million in cash, no questions asked. Another claimed to represent a museum in Dubai, but refused to give his full name. And then there were the men who didn't even bother to knock, just parked outside his property, watching. The world of meteorite collecting is more intense than most people realize. Some stones have sold for more than diamonds, more than gold, more than art. In 2011, a Martian meteorite sold for over $870,000. The lunar meteorite, Dar al-Ghani 1058, sold for even more. For some, space rocks aren't scientific relics. They're investments, trophies, or objects of obsession. As the value of the Maryborough meteorite rose, so did the stakes. David was advised to increase home security. He installed cameras. Local police began patrols near his property. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, a different kind of danger loomed. The black market for meteorites, a global network of illegal trade involving stolen samples, forged origins, and unscrupulous dealers. In places like North Africa and South America, entire communities have been built around meteorite hunting. While many operate legally, others smuggle rare finds across borders, selling them to private collectors without ever reporting their scientific value. Meteorites are one of the few natural treasures that often exist in a legal gray zone, priceless but poorly protected by international law. David's meteorite, now officially classified as a rare H5 ordinary chondrite, had become a prime target. Some dealers even offered to swap it for more discreet forms of wealth, cryptocurrency, offshore gold, even untraceable assets. The more David resisted, the more pressure he faced. His simple life had turned into a balancing act between ethics, curiosity, and temptation. And somewhere in the background, the rumors started that David was hiding more meteorites, that there were others in the region, that his story wasn't as simple as he claimed. The attention was no longer just scientific, it was personal, invasive, and dangerous. Faced with all of this, David made a choice. He contacted the museum again, not just to verify the rock's origins, but to donate it permanently. He wanted it protected, studied, and admired, not sold to the highest bidder. And in that moment, the story transformed once more, from a tale of fortune to one of responsibility. But what happened next would elevate this already legendary rock into something even greater. When scientists at Museums Victoria finally had full access to the Maryborough meteorite, they began a detailed analysis that would take months. What they discovered wasn't just fascinating, it was humbling. Locked inside the 17-kilogram mass of iron and nickel were not only ancient minerals, but molecular signatures older than Earth itself. Using scanning electron microscopes and isotope spectroscopy, researchers found pre-solar grains, crystalline fragments that predate the formation of our solar system. These grains were created in the dying breaths of ancient stars, red giants and supernovae, long before the Earth, the Moon, or even the Sun existed. And here they were, sitting inside a rock found in someone's backyard. But the most astonishing find wasn't what the meteorite told us about the past. It was what it revealed about the present. Trapped inside microscopic cavities were traces of organic compounds, complex carbon structures that, while not proof of life, strongly suggest the ingredients of life were already swirling through space billions of years ago. In other words, this rock might not have just come from space. It might carry the very building blocks of life itself. This revelation reignited debates among scientists around the world. Could meteorites like this have seeded life on Earth? Did the building blocks of our DNA arrive on a wave of cosmic debris billions of years ago? It's a theory known as panspermia, and while controversial, the Maryborough meteorite gave it one of the most compelling pieces of physical evidence to date. For the public, the meteorite became a symbol of wonder, of science, of humility. Thousands visited the museum to see it up close, to touch something not just old, but timeless. Schoolchildren drew pictures of it. Poets wrote about it. David Hole, once unknown, now gave interviews not as a man who got rich, but as a man who stumbled upon a piece of the universe. Meanwhile, the meteorite's story began appearing in textbooks, documentaries, and science exhibits worldwide. It wasn't just a rock anymore. It was a message from space, a reminder of how small we are, how ancient the universe is, and how sometimes the most extraordinary things lie just beneath our feet. Scientists gave it a formal name, the Maryborough meteorite. It joined the official global registry, earning a permanent place in the history of space science. But beyond the paperwork, beyond the chemistry, it left behind something even more valuable, a sense of scale. A reminder that while we rush through life, the universe has been patiently writing stories in stone for billions of years, waiting for someone to notice. And all of it, every grain, every atom, had been sitting there undisturbed under the dirt, until one man with a metal detector decided to stop, dig, and listen. After David Hole's discovery hit national headlines, something strange began to happen in Maryborough. People started showing up, not just journalists or scientists, but regular folks with metal detectors, shovels, and dreams. Empty fields, once ignored for decades, were suddenly swarming with amateur prospectors. It was as if the town had been struck by a modern-day gold rush, except this time the gold came from the sky. Hardware stores sold out of equipment. Metal detectors were back-ordered. People quit their jobs, temporarily at first, hoping they could be the next David Hole. The local council even had to issue guidelines and property warnings after several cases of trespassing and digging in protected areas. The quiet streets of Maryborough echoed with the unmistakable hum of detectors sweeping over gravel and grass. Some searchers found rusted nails, coins, and even World War II artifacts, but a few actually struck luck. Small fragments of meteoritic metal, confirmed by scientists as possible splinters from the same meteorite. This fueled the frenzy even more. Every backyard became a potential fortune. Every oddly heavy rock became a ticket to a new life. Social media only made it worse. Videos went viral of people finding suspected meteorites, many of them false, but it didn't matter. The belief was enough. Online forums filled with amateur hunters sharing coordinates, magnet tests, and conspiracy theories. Some claimed David had found more than one rock and was hiding them. Others believed a second, even larger meteorite lay buried deeper underground. A few entrepreneurs capitalized on the craze, selling meteorite hunting kits and offering guided tours of areas where fragments had allegedly been found. For a price, of course. One particularly opportunistic YouTuber staged a fake discovery and was exposed only after scientists debunked his video during a live Q&A session. But the myth had already taken root. And just like in the old gold rushes of California or the Yukon, most walked away empty-handed, but not without a story. One elderly man claimed to have found a rock in his youth that looked just like David's, but he used it as a doorstop for 30 years and eventually lost it during a house move. Others spoke of vivid dreams guiding them to locations, or of strange electromagnetic signals disrupting their gear. In the end, Maryborough changed. What was once a sleepy town became briefly the epicenter of celestial curiosity. Cafes rebranded with space-themed menus. A new museum wing was funded. Tourists came and left chasing stardust. And while no one found a second $1 million meteorite, something undeniably rare had been unearthed. A collective moment of wonder, shared by an entire community. It's ironic, isn't it? For centuries, humans have looked up to the stars hoping for signs, miracles, or riches, but sometimes the universe doesn't send those things in fire or thunder. Sometimes it just drops a rock. David Hole had become famous overnight, and with fame came all the usual trappings: interviews, phone calls, invitations to science programs. For a while he enjoyed the attention. After all, How many people can say they found a meteorite worth millions in their backyard? But as the dust settled, David began to realize that wealth, especially sudden unearned wealth, can carry a strange kind of loneliness. Friends changed. Some congratulated him warmly, others with veiled resentment. A few disappeared entirely, unable to hide their jealousy. Strangers treated him like a lottery winner, some asking for money, others accusing him of hoarding more meteorites or striking secret deals with the government. His story was no longer just his. It belonged to everyone who wanted a piece of it. Even within his family, dynamics shifted. Cousins and distant relatives reached out, some for the first time in decades. A few claimed they had rights to the land where the meteorite was found. Legal advisors were suddenly part of his daily life. David, once a quiet man who loved solitary hikes with his metal detector, now found himself negotiating contracts and statements for public record. And then there was the question of what to do with the money. Museums offered to buy the meteorite, but negotiations were slow and complicated by bureaucracy. Private collectors offered more, some offering absurd amounts in cash, no questions asked. But David didn't want to see the rock disappear into a billionaire's vault. He wanted it to be seen, studied, remembered. That decision cost him a fortune, but gained him something far more valuable: peace of mind. Still, the stress took a toll. David reported trouble sleeping. He became wary of people, especially those too curious about his personal life. The joy of the find had been replaced with anxiety about taxes, lawsuits, expectation. The meteorite had been heavy in his hands, but far heavier was the burden it placed on his life. Some nights, he wondered if he should have left the rock where he found it, buried, forgotten, just another mystery waiting patiently beneath the dirt. But then he would remember the children staring in awe at it in the museum, or the letters he received from young science students inspired by his story, and he would smile. Because the real value of the meteorite wasn't in the money, it was in what it represented, a bridge between the everyday and the extraordinary. A cosmic reminder that life, in all its chaos, can surprise us when we least expect. That even a man digging in the dirt can become part of something much larger than himself. He still visited the museum sometimes, quietly, standing at the back while school groups clustered around the glass case. No one ever recognized him, and that, he decided, was exactly how he liked it. In the end, it was never just about the rock. It was about what it represented, a fragment of the universe, older than Earth itself, resting unnoticed in a backyard for tens of thousands of years. Think about that. While empires rose and fell, while wars raged and peace returned, that meteorite simply sat there, waiting, silent, unchanging, until one man with a metal detector decided to dig a little deeper. It's easy to be swept up in the drama, the headlines, the money, the treasure-hunting frenzy. But beneath the noise lies something more enduring: wonder, the kind of childlike awe that science at its best keeps alive. That a stone forged in the death of a star could end up in the hands of a retired prospector in a small Australian town, that's not just coincidence, it's poetry. The Maryborough meteorite became more than a geological artifact. It became a symbol. For scientists, it offered insight into the formation of planets. For students, it was a gateway into astronomy. For dreamers, it proved that the extraordinary doesn't always lie in the stars above, but sometimes, quite literally, under our feet. And what of David Hull? He didn't become a flashy millionaire. He didn't move to a mansion or drive a sports car. He chose to remain in Maryborough, walking the same trails, metal detector in hand, not searching for more riches, but for peace. In interviews, he often said he felt like the meteorite had found him, not the other way around. And perhaps he was right. Stories like his remind us that we are all made of stardust, shaped by forces we barely understand, living brief flickers of existence on a tiny planet spinning through space. And once in a while, the cosmos leaves us a message, not in words, but in matter, a reminder that we're connected to something infinitely vast and ancient. So the next time you step outside, take a look at the ground beneath you, that odd rock in your yard, that strange shape in the soil. Who knows? Maybe it's just a rock, or maybe It's a visitor from the stars, waiting for someone curious enough to notice. Because sometimes to uncover something incredible, all it takes is to dig.